What up, what up, what up, football fans all over the world? It's your boy, Mac the Giants fan, coming. Excuse me. It's your boy, Mac the Giants fan, here with my super dope co host, Adam Costas. Y'all know what time it is. It's time for that real deal NFC East round up. Punch that intro. Excuse me, I'm sorry about that. I got something like, I don't know, it was weird. I can't explain, but something like my throat got scratchy for a second.
It's all right,
I apologize.
we all have the intro is still great no matter what. Why? Because you bring the heat. So people you want the intro, just cut that part out. You started again. So, anyways,
What's going on, Daniel? Thanks for popping in, man. Appreciate you, brother. Happy Wednesday to you. But how you doing today, Adam, man?
I'm good. It's been feels like a long week, even though I technically had a day off yesterday. Thanks to the proud veterans of this country.
I got yesterday too.
Got to honor them a little bit, But other than that, back on the grind, and thankfully the week is only got a couple days left. So
Absolutely. And NFC East action, man. Back at it. Let's talk about it, man. The NFC East had another weekend of. I don't know what to think about this division right now. I mean, Eagles right now still absolutely running away with it. This division, I feel like, is already decided, even though mathematically it might not technically be. It's decided. I feel like you can already go ahead and stick a fork in the Commanders, Cowboys, and the New York Football Giants. The Eagles have officially already, to me, won the NFC East division. There's no way any of these other three teams are catching them. We're going to talk about a little bit of that and the reasons why. Let's talk about the Eagles in Green Bay on Monday night, though, man. 10-7 matchup, prime time, Monday night, all eyes on us. As we were talking a little bit before the show, we got a few different opinions about this game, and let you share your thoughts. What we saw Monday night between the Packers and the Eagles, man.
what I saw was two defenses that are at the top of their game playing against some offenses that do have players out there that can score. I mean, if we want to look at the box score and tell me that it's not a defensive struggle, total yards on both sides, the Eagles at 294, the Packers at 261. Passing yards, 183 to 157. Rushing yards, 111 to 104. 4.9 yards a carry for the Eagles, 4 yards a carry for the Packers, right? I'm just saying we had a defensive struggle. The third down efficiency was a little better on the Eagles side of things. They converted 7 out of 16, while on the third down side they had 5 of 13. This is where I think the game really changed. Is the fourth down plays. They had 3 of them. They only converted 1. Obviously, that big time fumble. They had 2 fumbles lost, obviously, but that big one at the end of the game really cost them the game going forward. So I thought it was a defensive struggle, like you said. I mean, like you alluded to, I know you're not maybe as happy with the score, but I want to say one thing. I think we're conditioned this time because of where the NFL is to just expect scoring. And we don't expect defenses to do this. And that's what it was. Defenses made plays on both sides. You cannot take that away from people. The Packers pressured. They got to Jalen Hurst. They didn't allow him to use his legs normally. I really think they did a good job bottling up this offense, which, the Eagles offense has struggled, in this season at times. But I thought they did struggle a bit, but they still came out, and the Green Bay defense did what they needed to do to keep their team in the game. On the other side of the ball, I thought getting Jalen Phillips, getting Quinyon Mitchell, Michael Carter, I really think those guys helped out, and you saw it with the pass rush that was pretty relentless from the Eagles. They were stopping the run. They were in the backfield every 5 minutes. Green Bay players went down left and right because of how physical they were. I thought their defense came out and really made a statement, for me at least, that they're going to probably be the top team in this conference. I mean, they had this was the litmus test, right? I thought whatever team won this game was probably going to represent in the NFC. Well, guess what? Now we have the Eagles. We'll talk about their game a little bit later. They have another team that is also vying for that spot. So we'll see what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, see, yeah, I mean, I'm not taking anything away from these defenses. Defenses did absolutely play out of their minds on Monday night, obviously with a score like 10-7. It's just, to me, when you look at these two teams, these are amongst pretty much the cream of the crop in the NFC conference, from a record standpoint. And I feel like the Eagles, to me, until someone proves otherwise, they're the top. They're the top of the pyramid in the NFC right now, still, until someone absolutely proves otherwise. But I just to me, you see a score like 10-7 prime time. Look, I get it. I'm all for a good defensive struggle here and there. Watching defenses play really good football. I'm all for that. But I'm also, when I see two teams of this caliber, I want to see points on the board as well. I mean, look, for example, I mean, these are both two good defenses. I get it. But these are defenses that points have been scored upon all season long by other teams. So I just don't understand why two teams of this ilk, this talent like this, are not able to put a little bit more points on the board and give us maybe a little bit more of an entertaining football game in the prime slot, like on Monday Night Football. I mean, the Eagles, 10 points. You got A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Saquon Barkley, Dallas Goedert, Jalen Hurts. I mean, you're running those guys out there, running guys like that out there, and I get 10 points. I mean, I know the Packers defense, like I said, is a good unit, but this is a Packers team that, like I said, you watch week in and week out, teams still put points on the board against them, man. And it's just, to me, it makes me a little still more concerning about where this Eagle offense is really going, man. Because right now it's still looking a lot like the same. I thought coming out this bye week, we were going to see a different, much improved offensive unit from the Philadelphia Eagles, and we got pretty much exactly what we've been getting all season from this team. So to me, it's just it's not concerning for the NFC, so to speak, but it's concerning for the fact that, I mean, for the NFC East, because obviously that division is theirs already, I feel like. But for me, it's the thing about once we get into January, are they going to get things rectified for the postseason run when you're going to have to put points on the board and you're going to have to be able to keep up with the better offenses? Because right now, as much talent as this Eagles offense has on their side, they're not playing like a unit that has all that talent. And I'm just not so sure if they're going to be able to represent once again and go back and defend that title, because I'm just right now I'm still not completely sold on that based off of what I'm seeing. And with the Green Bay Packers, a little bit of the same. I mean, I really don't know what to make of this football team week to week, to be honest. I mean, yeah, I get it. Their record still puts them as amongst the top teams in the conference, but it's to me, this is not a football team that necessarily plays like it. And you got teams within your own division that are just steadily improving week in and week out, as we'll be talking about the Bears in a little bit here. I just don't know what to expect from these football teams. I just really was expecting a much more entertaining football game Monday night than what we got. That's all. I mean, like I said, I'm not going to take away from what their defense was able to accomplish. I just feel like you expect still more when you see these teams out there.
I mean, I guess you're right in a certain aspect with the Eagles' offense being inconsistent, but I really do believe the Green Bay Packers have a good game plan. Now they've lost back-to-back games. Their season is in peril right now because they do have the heart of their schedule coming up with these divisional games, obviously, and they need this next one against New York badly to get back in that winning ways, to get back on there. I think what you're seeing is if they can give you that same defensive effort going forward in all their games, they'll be able to figure out the offense. And I think what they're going to need to do, if I'm Matt LaFleur, and he's the offensive mind. I think they need to rely a little bit more on Josh Jacobs and try to just keep pounding the rock and see if that's going to open up, especially with the injuries that they're going to have. So there's that.
Well, we'll see, man.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, the Packers are what the Packers are, and they're an inconsistent football team that one moment has greatness and looks like a Super Bowl caliber team, and the next minute loses to the Browns, right? So, I think if they can figure out that consistency, I don't know if they had their bye week. I think they had their bye week already, but they had the tie with the Cowboys. They have a track meet, so that they can score as well. And I think getting Christian Watson back and kind of figuring out, we'll see if they can weather this storm. Because right now, again, they play Minnesota, they play Detroit, they play Chicago right after they play the Giants. So if they need this win, it's a major win that they need coming up. Because that is going to be hard. You don't always beat the same teams twice, right? So Minnesota is struggling. They might be able to catch them there, and the Bears, right? But you still have Detroit looming, who is nipping on their heels, and these are the things that they need to figure out. And if they can put it together, they're going to be a unit to be reckoned with. The problem is whether or not their offense will come through.
What's going on? What's going on, Lou? What's going on, Mosley? Appreciate y'all popping in, man. But yeah, it's like I said, it's just splitting hairs a little bit here. There's no convincing me this is a good football team in the Philadelphia Eagles. Obviously, it's just I'm just baffled by why we haven't been able to see them really come together offensively just with these pieces. I just can't. I mean, yeah, from one standpoint, you can say yes. Ultimately, hasn't been very pretty, but they still continuously find ways to get the W, which is the absolute main thing anyway. So I don't know. I just maybe like you said, maybe I'm conditioned. Maybe I'm just one of the. You can't raise the bar and then kind of come back down with me. I need you to stay up there. Like if that's where you are, you should stay up there. That's where you need to stay up there on that. And I know they are winning, but it's just to me. Is this a true winning formula once you get to a point, like I said in January, where you're playing against the best of the best, as opposed to having teams like, for instance, the Giants, popping up on your schedule. You know what I mean? Like it's just to me, I'm not sure.
But they just beat a team with that offense, being able to move it when they needed to move the ball, the tush push, all that stuff. They fumbled themselves. They had some mistakes. So while I agree with what you're saying, let's see what they do next week in the next game they play, right? Because they're 7-2 now. They are atop of the division. They're the number 1 seed, and they play Detroit coming up, right? Who we're going to talk about in a minute. And that'll be a game where you really will find out, to me, if they are who we are. If they go in there, if they go into Detroit and it's a track meet and they look good, then we'll be saying, damn, the Eagles are doing it again. But right now, to me, they somehow, like you said, they haven't scored the points that they've scored. They didn't blow the doors off of everybody because, one, I do believe this also comes into play. They won the Super Bowl last year. Everybody's trying to give them their best shot, no matter what game they play, right? Everybody's trying to give them their best shot. And that's how you live when you are a Super Bowl champion. That's everybody's coming in because they want to raise the bar and say, can I live up to this football team? Now, even with the transgressions that you said about their offense and the things that they haven't done or accomplished the same way, to me, I somehow I see a stronger football team because now I feel like their defense got better. And if their defense can keep them in games and make turnovers and do like that and give them short fields, we're going to still be talking about this team deep in January. And right now, they have one of the best records in football, if not the what's up, Lud? If not the best record in football, and they're the best. They have the best record in the conference right now.
It's about basically. I think it's tied for the best record or something like that. At least I think. Everybody has at least 2 losses. Nobody has less than 2 losses. So, yeah.
Right. Well, they're not like the AFC where it's like a logjam of 7 to 8 winners at the top. Right. It's. I think it goes. It might be Seattle number 1, and then the Eagles, but Eagles 1, Seattle 2. I do think Tampa Bay's 3, and then it goes down the line. But my point is, they're one of the top 2 teams, and that's where they're aiming for. They're aiming to hopefully get seed number 1, but at least get seed 2 so they can at least have home playoff game and be able to. Yeah, I'm scared of this team. Why? Because you never know when they're going to have that breakout game, right? Because you know it's coming. You know it's going to be a game where their defense and their offense click and they really shut a team down and really look like the Eagles that we've known. But I can't complain right now because whatever they're doing, they find ways to win. Just like we talk about the New York team who finds ways to lose, this team finds ways to win.
And that's a fair point. And that is a fair point. And like I've always said myself, ultimately, that's what it's all about. It's about getting that W, no matter how you get it. No style points in the win-loss column. It's all about just getting the W, no matter however you get it. And they do continue to find ways to get the W. So, just a team, just something to keep the eye on. Like I said, I'll keep my eye on the Eagles all through the rest of this journey and see, man. Like I said, I feel like at this point they're coasting. I feel like the division is already well in hand. They can already pencil them in for a playoff spot. I feel like already the only team I feel like you can just straight up go ahead and pencil them in. Their spot is pretty secure. You know what I mean? They're going to definitely be representing the NFC East. It looks like
that's a given. No matter what happens, that's pretty much
what I mean. Given. It would take an epic collapse for that not to happen at this point now, where the rest of the division stands right now. It's just really the only team in that division with a winning record is the Philadelphia Eagles. So
I mean, if they split the games, what if there's like 8 games left, 7 games left, something like that, 8 games?
Yeah, right? Something.
If they were to split the games right now, they'd be 11 or they'd be like what 12 and 6, 12, 11,
yeah,
11 and 6,
something like that. Yeah.
So we're like that's not a good record. I'd take 11 and 6 right now over 2 and 8 any day of the week. But again, winners find winning teams. They got to the Super Bowl for a reason. They made these choices with Jalen Phillips, Michael Carter. They improved themselves going forward. Let's see how that plays out. I'm not as skeptical as you. I understand what you're looking for and the expectation you set forth through this team. I'm looking at it like, yo, you're fucking 7-2, whether you dodge bullets or not. It's not sure. Well, I think what we're doing is we're hanging our hat on how dominant they were offensively last year. And right now, they're not as dominant for whatever reason. And I think it's injuries on the offensive line. I think a new scheme, a lot of moving parts. I think that's what's happening. But somehow, even with all this turmoil going on the offensive side of the ball, they're still 7-2, right? And that's something you got to. That's true. That we got.
This is true. They are 7-2, like you said. So at the end of the day, I mean, it is what it is. Oh, the Broncos signed little Jordan Humphreys. What's going on? No Mets, no Nets, no
our
Jets.
Star receiver.
Well, don't have him anymore. Oh well. I mean, he only played 2 games, right?
I mean, I'm not losing any sleep over little Jordan Humphrey.
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point he wasn't going to make it or break. He wasn't going to.
Well, good
bring
for him.
Much
to the winning team.
Much to it. Yeah, he gets the opportunity to play in the postseason and stuff.
He might actually get some burn on the Broncos, because it feels like this guy does well, and all of a sudden they didn't use him again. So, and we have
it was so bizarre, right? I said the same thing. I said all of a sudden we're just not going to use this guy that was clearly productive when he was inserted in lineup against the Philadelphia Eagles, no less. Okay, right. Whatever. All right. But that's neither here nor there. Joe Shane's a whole different. We'll talk about all that in a little bit. Yeah, let's get to the Washington Commanders. Washington Commanders and Detroit Lions on Sunday. This game was never a contest. The Washington Commanders, they've got problems all over the place. This unit is going to be lucky if they can even hold off the New York Giants at this point for third place. To be honest, the way that this team is playing right now, it's been bad. And we talk about how bad the New York Giants are. Let me just give you something about this Washington Commanders team while they've been on this 5-game losing streak that they're on now. They're not only on a 5-game losing streak, the last 4 of these 5 games, they have gotten their ass absolutely kicked. And I'm talking about to the tune of against Dallas Cowboys 44-22, against the Chiefs 28-7, against Seattle 38-14, and this just recently on Sunday against the Detroit Lions 44-22. Again, how do you lose by the exact same score twice and the opposing team put up 40 on you? But this is just, I don't understand. This Washington Commanders team they've got problems. And I'll let you talk about it, Adam.
Well, they kind of did what the Giants did back in 2022, where they went to the playoffs and then they thought we're better than we thought, and they kind of invested in the team, thinking they would be better. And I think what they did was when they looked at their business model was Jaden Daniels, and they did not expect him to get injured the way he has, right? Because they expected him to have the same magic as he had last year, where he's going to run and play a lot of these close games that they did, and that allows their defense to do well. Well, when you don't have that, you're losing players left and right. You didn't have a defense to begin with. You're losing all your defensive stars. You lose your quarterback. This is what you're going to get. And maybe this is good for them. Maybe they need to plummet a little bit so they can get a top player in the draft to help on whatever side of the ball they need help on. Probably defense. We're talking about another guy named Marvell Reese, I think his name is, on Ohio State. They need a linebacker. Well, guess what? That guy is a linebacker. Now, I would love for him to be on the Giants, but let's say they fall to the top 3 or they're a little ahead of the Giants, and they're looking at that kid and say, Bobby Wagner is long in the tooth. We need an impact player at that position to kind of help out. Maybe they take a defensive end. Who knows what they do, but they're going to have a lot of work to do on their hands. And I don't know if they've tuned out Dan Quinn. I think they still play hard, but when you don't have a good defense and your offense is sputtering, and teams like, again, the Lions, Dallas, teams that have offenses that can cook, it's harder to defend. And I think their formula last year was not the formula that they were going to win with this year. Remember, they played a lot of close games. They wanted like Hail Marys and deep passes, a lot of magic, a lot of smoke and mirrors, as they say. And did they win some games? Yeah. Did they beat up on the Lions, who were shocked? Yes, and I do believe the Lions were putting the foot to gas on that because they knew that they were going to – this game circled since last year. Now, I wouldn't be surprised the Lions start to ascend here because they got the monkey off their back. They beat the vaunted Commanders. And sometimes when you do that, it puts you in another direction. So I think the Commanders are in trouble, but they have a solid coaching staff. They have a solid front office. You're going to have your up years, you're going to have your down years. It's about what you do next year. And they're going to have a last place or at least a third place schedule right here going forward, depending on where they finish with the Giants, because the Giants are that much better of a team right now. Their talent is a lot healthier, but they aren't, record-wise, and they haven't done much either. So, but, Marcus Mariota proved that he can play a little bit if you give him the offense, the keys. And I think going forward, they're going to need to figure out what works best. They don't necessarily have a run game they can lean on. I feel like it's sporadic. I think Bill is good. He's a solid player, but he's a rookie. And I really do think the loss of Brian Robinson has hurt them, as well as the loss of Austin Eckler, because they don't really have an identity without those two guys. They're not a power running team the same way. Nobody believes in them. They can't get the same play action going. And then on defense, when you can't generate pass rush, this is what you get. Now, we'll see if Dan Quinn taking over the play calling is going to help with that. I think they're scrambling right now, and you just gotta let the plane crash, man. Just let the plane crash, and whoever survives. Whoever doesn't. I don't think they're going to be in the coaching search per se, especially one game out of the NFC Championship game. I don't think they're going to do that unless they can get a coach like a Tomlin or something. Maybe Matt LaFleur. Who knows? But I think they're going to stick with their guys, and we'll see what happens. And I think this will be their crash year. Right? They'll get everybody back. They'll reevaluate, reassess, and then they'll say, okay, our offensive line's decent. Our offensive line's coach is decent. Our skill position players, aren't playing well. Like Deebo Samuel. I'm sorry, but he has not lived up to what you're paying that guy to do. Right? And maybe that's why the 49ers were able to get rid of him, because they understood his shelf life was expiring. So here we are. Because when you have a team like the Commanders and you bring in Deebo Samuel and you have a couple of these playmakers, sometimes you need to rely on those guys. You need to rely on those guys that are healthy to elevate you. And if their stars aren't playing above the X's and O's, then that becomes a problem. And when you're relying, again, specifically on Jaden Daniels playing backyard football and he's injured, you get the result that you get. And I think this will be a test for them coming up in this offseason. When we get there, it's going to be here pretty quick before you know it. And I think we'll see them go after. I think they'll really solidify their defense this year and make it a defensive-centric kind of offseason.
Yeah, I agree, man. This team is it's just a lot of trouble. And I think what a lot of it comes down to is just what you talk about with Jaden Daniels. I think there's just a lack of confidence when he's not out there. When you know you don't have a 100% Jaden Daniels out there, which you really haven't had much of this season at all. I mean, I feel like this is like he's on like his third injury of the year already. At this point right now, it's just been a piece that's been banged up all season, and I think this team lacks confidence big time. Like you said, Deebo Samuel just has not lived up to what they thought he was going to be. He got out the gate quickly, as No Mets just said. He had a pretty solid game against the Giants week 1. And it's just been pretty much not much since then, man. He hasn't really done much. He hasn't really elevated this offense in any way. The fact that they're out here, they're relying heavily on the veteran Zach Ertz, who's still he's still decent, serviceable tight end, but he's not that guy he once was back in the day. So this team does need a lot of help. And maybe a season ago they played above the X's and O's and played out of their mind. But the lack of a run game is like you said, just tearing this team up. Like they put just too much faith in these young guys that they had, and they're really find out the hard way right now that Brian Roberts Jr. was not as expendable as they made it seem. Now, sure, they didn't foresee Austin Eckler getting a season-ending injury, but I'm not sure how much is different if healthy Austin Eckler is here. I'm just not so sure how much would be very different with this football team right now. Defensively, they are an absolute mess, as we've seen the announcement that Dan Quinn is taking over play calling on the defensive side of the football. He's seen enough. That's what a head coach does. He's taking over. You know what I mean? He's like, no, enough is enough of this. So he's going to, and who knows if that's going to truly improve, because I think their issue could be a little more leaning towards personnel from a personnel standpoint. I mean, I know they got a couple of players, but let's for instance that Von Miller pickup that people were excited about at the start of the season has not turned into anything. I mean, nobody's even people probably seem like forgot that Von Miller's even on the Commanders right now. I haven't heard his name all season. Haven't really seen anything.
Well, I think
from him.
I think Dan Quinn addressing the problem is not necessarily going to fix the problem, because I don't think but I don't know if there is play calling issues. I haven't followed them that well, but to me, he's going to take it over because he wants to take onus and ownership of what his side of the ball is, right? He is a defensive coordinator that was a head coach and now went back to being a defensive coordinator. So I admire what he's doing. Do I think it's going to help? We'll see. We will see. Just like with what's happening with New York, you just got to see. Maybe there'll be a different strategy employed. Maybe he'll understand, what defenses work better against what coverages. I don't know. I don't know what will happen with this move, but it just is taking ownership. What is interesting to me though is I'm a big guy, a Cliff Kingsbury guy, but looking at his offense right now, I wonder if he'll get a head coaching job, because he seems not be able to fix his offense, right? It has no identity right now. And while I like him a lot as a head coaching candidate, I think right now I want to see how the rest of the season plays out for them offensively because if he can make chicken soup out of chicken shit and they still are kind of competitive on the offensive side of the ball, well, guess what? They're going to be able to match up with some teams that are on and around their level, Raiders, Giants, Cowboys, maybe even again in their building when it's a little different. If they can somehow be competitive, make the defense bend but don't break and give up field goals, and Mariota can, do some things to move the ball a little bit, I think they can still survive. That's what you want to do, is see them survive. Their season is off the rails right now. I don't think they're going to the playoffs. Because as you mentioned, there's teams have like 2 or 3 game leads on them, in the wild card race right now. We're not just talking about the top teams, but you still got the entire NFC North has a game, or at least two games, at least a game on the Commanders, and possibly more going forward. You have the the NFC West, which has a couple teams in there that, obviously are going to be, going around and making their rounds in the NFC West. And then, you've got, Seattle, you got Tampa Bay and a few other teams in and around these teams where the outcome of you making the playoffs is right now. So even the Panthers are still in playoff contention right now at this moment. Who knows what happens in 3 weeks, but once you begin December, that's when you separate the men from the boys. But right now, in the middle of their year, it's probably over for them. So they just need to be able to have respectability going forward. I never believe in tanking because, to me, you got to play it out the string, right? Because you never know what's going to happen. You want to play to win. Otherwise, why put the games on the schedule? And
play to win the game.
To me, you have your quarterback already. I want to see these next 8 games as an evaluation for me. It's who's going to be on the team, what guys can I roll with next year, what guys am I going to get rid of, and kind of start to, aggregate while you're here. If you guys know that you're going to be here, start to aggregate what weaknesses that you have and need, so that when you go out and you make your free agency list and your wish list, remember, they trade a lot of draft picks away. They're going to have to be able to be a little bit more creative and get some of that draft capital back, I do believe, whether that is, maybe they want to be the top 3 pick, right? And as a quarterback needing team, maybe they trade out and they can get more assets. So that's what I'd be doing if I'm the Commanders. We'll see if this change makes any difference, but that's all I got.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's just going to be them trying to find their way because, like I said, 5-game losing streak, and these last 4 have been absolute. They've gotten the doors blown off in each of the last 4 contests, and they can't continue down this same road. They got to figure out a way to at least get back to some kind of respectability. I mean, looks like they're going to be without Jaden Daniels for a second straight week this week as well, and they're going to have to figure out something. I mean, Mariota did hats off to him. He did play pretty decent. I mean, it's not really like he was out there playing poorly. So it's just, I don't know. This team defense, especially their problems to me mostly are on the defensive side of the football. I know you were talking about Cliff Kingsbury earlier. I feel like offensively, this team is, I mean, let's face it, they're not going to be the same with Jaden Daniel when he's playing at his best, when he's playing at his top level, which you really haven't been able to see much of this year because of the injuries. But I think defensively is where the majority of this team's problem is. And I think come April in the draft, you're going to see them really addressing that issue, the defensive side of the football, very aggressively, I think, because they need to fix that. That side of the ball is completely broken. And I think with Dan Quinn, I think it's more, like you said, an accountability thing with him taking over this defense and just kind of trying to take some kind of control of it. But at the end of the day, I think the results are going to still end up ultimately being pretty similar to what we've been seeing. But that's all I got with the Commanders, man. Unless you got anything else,
Nope.
We can get to that 1 o'clock window on Sunday afternoon, man. The New York Giants going up to Soldier Field, taking on the Chicago Bears. 2 young quarterbacks going at it, man. Toe to toe, man. Jackson Dart, Caleb Williams, both playing great football. And then, as the New York Giants always do, as it seems to be what they always do this season anyway, 4th quarter happens and, everything goes to shit. Adam, you can go ahead and take it, bro.
Well, here we are again, Sunday afternoon, beautiful day. I'm sitting there watching my franchise quarterback elevate his team. Now, I think what happened was the Bears let him hang around early on. Remember how they were exchanging 3 and outs? Usually, the Giants, the last few games, had to play from behind and kind of, play fast. Well, they didn't. Darius Slayton ignited them, God forbid, with a one-handed catch.
Yeah, fucking tremendous catch.
He made a play. He did. Darius Slayton doing his Jamal Crawford impression coming through in a game. Let's see if he comes through next week. Jamal Crawford, the Nick player, or he played on many different teams, but he would have a 38-point game one night and a 0 game the next. And that's Darius Slayton in a nutshell. He'll look good in one game, and the next game you won't hear from him. But and then of course he pulls a hamstring like an idiot. But then I got Jackson Dart wheeling and freaking dealing. Okay? Leading this Bears team, shocking this Bears team that just put up 47 the week prior. Defense is playing, admirably. They're doing their job. They weren't very good, but they were doing their job. They kept themselves in the game. They did what they had to do. But Jackson Dart, that's the Dart effect. He elevates everybody. So then what does our brilliant coach do? Does he bring up Turbo Miller? Does he bring up Devin, another running back? No, he's relying on the quarterback to be the running back. So you know what he does? And granted, it's been working all game. It has been working all game. He does a QB power. And let's be honest, the ball gets exposed. C.J. Gardner-Johnson, he uses that little chicken wing, bang, knocks the ball out. Now Jackson Dart, making a play, realizes the ball is coming out. So what does he do? He tries to catch the ball. So it's a big moment in the game. They're driving downfield, probably going to break the game open right now. Probably going to go down there and score another touchdown and make it 24-7, almost damn near out of reach, right? Not out of reach at this point. So he goes there. They fumble the fucking ball because he's trying to catch it, right? He lands on his head because Austin Booker caught him, was tackling him at the same time, and he was trying to catch the ball. Dart had no way to protect himself. Bang! Lights out. And I saw his lights out on the field. I turned to my wife and I said, they might be checking him, for concussion. They may be, because I saw his eyes were closed on the replay. When they went down to the replay and they showed him, his eyes were literally closed, like he was knocked out for a second, and then he slowly got up. I'm like, okay, all right, whatever. So here I am thinking, they get the ball back. Now, they drive downfield. They score a field goal. You're like, all right, we're still in this. We can still do this. Then the next thing you see is you see two plays, and then all of a sudden Russell Wilson's in the game. I'm like, oh, shit. I knew the moment that Russell Wilson walked in the game was over. Now, I don't care that we were down at the fucking, half-yard line or whatever it was. When he came in the game, you knew that game was over. But what did the coach do? Instead of going for it on 4th and 1 with Russell Wilson and just trying something or giving it to your back who just had a 40-yard gain to get you down the field, he sent to the trip for his 4 times for a concussion. He was only diagnosed with 1. So he passed the 3 other tests in the protocol. So yes, while he was in a blue tent many times, he never had quote unquote a concussion. But that's the problem of your fucking offensive coach putting him in harm's way. People keep saying, well, why doesn't Jackson Dart, protect himself? Well, if you're making him a runner, it doesn't matter how he protects himself. That could have been Darius Slayton in a concussion, right? That could have been Malik Neighbors had the same thing when the guy tackled him in play on a Daniel Jones low pass. He wasn't able to brace himself. But when you constantly go to the well too much, this is what happens. Anyways, Russell comes in the game. They kick a field goal. They should have been aggressive there. They were roasting on the defense playing well. Now, I can't necessarily fault Dable because he believes his defense is playing well. But I can fault Dable because it's the 4th quarter and your team hasn't had a chance to hold a lead. So here we go again. Commanders get the ball. What happens? Caleb Williams turns the magic on. We can't get a sack. You know how many pressures we had? We had 12 pressures. I don't want to hear about Kayvon Thibodeau. I've been fighting with people on Spaces all week about that. Go, oh my God, he's so great. So great. So great. You know who makes those tackles? Brian Burns. People make those tackles. That's what you do when you get paid. That's what you do when you're 5th overall pick. That game should have been over by the defense. But no, I get an Ole by KT. Great job, right? Caleb Williams sneaks out and is starting to make plays. A stupid penalty, and next thing you know, their drive is continued. And then, boom, what do? They get Rome Odunze in the end zone for a touchdown. Because all of a sudden, the defense forgot how to play fucking defense. So now here we go, right? Now you're thinking to yourself, okay, 20-17 right now, or, I think we could probably hold on. No. You knew it was over once the Giants couldn't do another thing and punted the ball away. And then, of course, what happens? I don't know if we're cursed, but J.B. Gillian has the worst punt all season. I told you that guy was bad, but it showed his ugly head. And of course, in Giant fashion, we have a fucking pooch punt. And what happens? Magic down the field. We don't get the edges. God forbid, Kayvon Thibodeau, what is he doing? Up, still crashing and up, but there goes Caleb Williams, still looking at his ass as it goes into the end zone. Here we go. Now we get the ball back, again, with a chance to possibly win. And we have Russell fucking Wilson, who throws one into the dirt. He throws one away and then gets his arm tipped and down near picked. And I knew it was over. A complete and utter meltdown. And the results are what? The results are you're fucking fired. Why? Because we could not take another meltdown. You had a chance in this game, whether you were winning or not. What did we just say? You play to win games, right, Mac? Well, guess what?
Absolutely.
We fucking played to lose that game. That's what we played like. We played like a team that was, worried about the fucking division title, and our defense was the fucking Packers defense. We were, let's just kick the field goal here. Well, go for it. If you're gonna lose, at least lose gambling.
All right, I gotta talk. I gotta talk. This part right here, this grinds my gears. This part of the game grinded my gears. I don't care that. I understand Jackson Dart's not out there, and Russell Wilson ain't the runner. But this thing, he ain't got to run on here. He just got to fall down forward and stick the ball across the goal line. You are talking about 4th and goal from what could have been the half-a-yard line, and we just go ahead kick the field goal. Just don't take the penalty. The field goal is good, and we're just gonna take those 3 points when you could have just put 7 on the board. You are a 2-7 football team, a 2-7 football team on the road. You haven't won a road game since last October. Since October of 2024. That is the last time the New York Giants won a football game on the road. And you are settling for 3 points from the half-yard line? Just take the touchdown. Go up by the two touchdowns. Put that extra added pressure on the Bears. Yes, I get it. They scored 2 more touchdowns anyway, but maybe with the extra pressure of knowing they absolutely had to do it, it just changes the dynamic of the football game. Worst case scenario, we don't get the touchdown on 4th and goal. So they got to go 99 yards to score. Give me a break. That the only decision that needed to be made right there was go for the touchdown. You are a 2-7 football team. That to me was unacceptable. And as a head coach, it was a gutless call. It was a gutless call. And you can go all the way full circle back to your first game coaching as a New York Giants, where you made that ballsy call to go for the win on the road in Nashville. Remember that? Where's that guy at? Where was that coach at on Sunday? That's the shit. Part of the thing, reasons why you're up out of here now. That's part of the reason why you're unemployed now. Because of decisions like that. That whole offensive game plan, once Russell Wilson came in, there was no offensive game plan. Once he came in, the offense all of a sudden looked like absolute shit, and it was a very functional offense the whole entire game prior to that. Once he came in, nothing. So that also asked me to raise the question, why has he been your backup quarterback if when you put him in the game, offense can't function anymore? These are the things that just I haven't been able to understand with Brian Daboll. This was the 3rd time we watched this team have a 2-score lead in the 4th quarter, at least a 2-score lead, in the 4th quarter, because Denver, they had more than a 2-score lead. That was just, I don't even want to revisit that. But at least a 2-score lead in the 4th quarter, and you cough up and you can't bring it home and you can't get the W. That is a lack of coaching. And then people talk about the lack of effort is not all on the coaches. Yes, it is. Because a lack of effort only comes from players once they stop believing in what the hell is being taught to them. That's when you get the lack of effort, because everybody's playing this game because they want to play. They're not playing just because. They're playing because they want to be out there. They want to compete. They want to win. Once you stop believing in what these coaches is putting out there, that's when you see the lack of effort and all the discipline issues, all the things on the field things you see with the New York Football Giants, because they don't believe. And what they don't believe in what's getting preached to them, they don't believe in what's being said to them. They don't believe it's going to work. They don't. So that that's just what you get. The minute Jackson Dart was no longer in this football game, it's like the whole team just knew, guys, that's it. Our guy's gone. Our guy's out. We don't have nothing. We're done. We're over with. I mean, like you said, Adam, he's out there elevating these same players that couldn't catch a cold last week. Darius Slayton, Theo Johnson making great catches. Theo Johnson made a couple of very nice catches in this football game. Like you said, just elevating the level of these subpar players. And yet, these are still the same results. The same results. This defense underachieving. Abdul Carter, maybe you're cursed. Second time on the season, you got a sack that got taken away because of a bonehead penalty in the secondary. I don't get it. I can't figure it out. But this football team it's a mess, and it can't stop with Brian Daboll. Joe Shane should not be sitting here getting a free pass. He absolutely shouldn't. I don't understand that part. I'm also questioning, because there has been poor decision after poor decision after poor decision made by Joe Shane. So I do not understand at this point why he's still okay. They should have been a package deal. They brought their asses in here together, should have sent their ass out the door together. Point blank and period, man. Go ahead, Adam.
Let's talk about the firing that happened. Obviously, we can't bury that anymore. Mac alluded to it. All right. After a game like this, I agree. Brian Daboll should have been off the plane in Denver. And I knew, you remember that little tidbit that came out there, like, oh, well, he was being fired, but cooler heads prevailed, or whatever the case may be. Well, when they asked him that question, he didn't deny it. I knew that happened. I knew that he was a dead man walking anytime. They're probably trying to wait to the bye week. And if he had won this game, he probably gets at least to the end of the season, right? But he didn't, and he lost in horrible fashion, and he gets fired. Now, Mike Kafka has been promoted. Now, I don't know what's going to happen with this team. Daboll was an issue in many different ways, right? And he was an issue all of his tenure. I feel like the Giants have gotten hot-headed coaches who fight with their coaches and are real dickheads. Sorry if any kids are listening, that like Joe Judge and Brian Daboll, because Judge fought Colombo, he was fired, right? And then he got rid of Jason Garrett and Freddie Kitchen. This guy got fired. He fired Wink Martindale. He didn't want to fire Shane Bowen, which tells me maybe Brian Daboll is the one to blame, because this is his defense. Let's see if Shane Bowen changes. I don't think it's going to change much. I think when you fire a coach like this, I think the team is in a little influx. I agree with you. Joe Shane should be gone. The only reason I think he has a job right now is because John Mara did not want to have to look for, well, at least what they're saying is possibly that he's going through his treatments, doesn't want to deal with this bullshit right now. Now, I've heard reports coming out between, a lot of people, Schefter, Schrager, guys like that Joe Shane is safe for now. And they may let the new head coach decide his fate, which I think you should do. I don't think you should be married to the GM at all. I don't think even though John Mara said the coaching search, if let's say they want Halfley, and we'll get into some of the coaching candidates in a minute, but let's say ex-coach wants to come here. He's like, but I don't want Joe Shane, but I'll come here for Jackson Dart, Malik Neighbors, but I don't want Joe Shane. I do have this guy who I want to bring with me. Maybe they'll make the call and say, you know what, Joe, you're out of here. We want this guy. We want him really badly. Remember, the GM and the owners are hiring the coach, not the GM. The GM is going to be aggregating information and getting interviews lined up. I don't know if he'll have the final say in anything, which if that's the case and that's how you're operating with this GM, then he needs to go too. I think right now the only reason he's safe is because they're going to now evaluate him from this point forward, saying, okay, we're going to see what happens with the 7 games in the roster management. Kafka is going to get an audition, although I don't believe he should be the coach, just me. But that's my take. Let's get into some of your thoughts on what's happening with this coach.
Oh, you talking about Kafka, or you mean or in general, or are you talking about Daboll still?
Either one. I mentioned Kafka. What do you think he's going to bring? Do you think it's going to be an upgrade? I don't think it's going to be status quo on offense. But I asked this question earlier in a space, and I kind of got a half answer. I said, with Jameis starting, you lose the element of running. So how is this going to change the offense behind a team that likes to blitz and pass rush? You don't have Jackson Dart to elevate you. How will this change? You know what I mean? And so I'd like to hear your thoughts on it.
Well, I mean, it's tough to say. How will it change? Because right now, I don't know what to expect with Jameis Winston out there now. It's at this point, we know Jameis Winston is who he is. I mean, he's going to be the guy out there. I think you're going to see you're obviously going to see a lot of shots down the field with Jameis Winston. He's going to always take those big, deep shots. I think it's going to give you opportunity to see what Mike Kafka's made of. Does he have the ability to make the adjustments that are needed? That are needed with this football team right now. As you see, I think that was one of Daboll's biggest issues, was just never being able to seem like couldn't adjust. And like I said, Russell Wilson comes in the game. There's no adjustment. You're almost trying to have him do the same thing Jackson Dart's doing, but clearly he doesn't have that kind of skill set. So I want to see if he's able to at least navigate this thing better around the talent that he has on the field, understand the talent that he has on the field, seem to have a better grasp and understanding of what the tools he's got to work with, which obviously, as we know, aren't very good, to be quite frank, at least most weeks. So
this is where I, have my issues right now, because I like Winston. I think he's a fun guy. He's enjoyable to listen to on the podium. His press conference today was hilarious. But you're not here to be a comedian. You're here to win football games. And I'm wondering how much you're going to change when you built an offense basically for Jackson Dart. Now, what are you going to do? Right? Are you going to have end arounds? Are you going to bring up Turbo Miller now because you don't have the power offense that you normally would be using with Jackson Dart? Because remember, Jackson Dart, like I said, he had 2 rushing touchdowns in that game. He was the X factor in the game against Chicago, right? Now, I'm not saying that Winston wouldn't have done that. What I take with Winston is I'm going to get more shots downfield, but that also means he also has a propensity to turn the ball over. So I have a feeling that, he can lead to a sack fumble, right? Because he's careless. And I don't want him not to be careless. That's just who he is. You're not going to change him now, okay? He's been, careless with the football everywhere he's been. Even in the New Orleans Saints was his best opportunity. And I thought he played his best football with Sean Payton, and then he blew out his knee. And, of course, they moved on and went a different direction. And then when he went with the Browns, he was fun to watch, but they still benched his ass as well. So, I don't think we're going to get a ton of wins necessarily with Jameis. It's just going to be a little different. And with his Packer team coming in, I think that with the lack of a run game, because they don't believe in it, nobody believes in our run game. Not one person believes in our run game. And now with Jackson Dart not being there, I can do a lot more. Now, maybe this allows for, maybe this allows for more deep passes, but we'll see. Nomad says, I'm rooting for Mike, but I don't think he's the guy. I don't think he's the guy either. I'm not rooting for him either way. I don't think the Giants should keep him next year, regardless of what they have. This guy needs to be 9-8 for me to be like, keep you. All right. I just think you need to clean house. Let him go find another job somewhere else, unless he blows the doors off, and bring in a new guy, a fresh face. I don't want anything to do with this regime. You fired Brian Daboll. The problem is, they suck. But so does Shane Bowen. It's not like Shane Bowen is going to magically be this new coach, right? He doesn't know how to call a game very well, and the team on that side of the ball doesn't believe in him. So while I'm going to be excited for the offense and what they do and see how limited they really are, the defensive side of the ball doesn't excite me either. I don't see the Giants going, oh, yay, after they just said that they praised Brian Daboll and that Dexter Lawrence goes, this is the guy I want to see go forward with. Now are you going to play hard for Mike Kafka? Because to me, I think they just need to reset and get somebody different in here. There's a couple names out there, and we'll touch on some of those names in a minute.
But yeah, just to touch on that this point too as well, like you said, I want to get rid of wipe the whole regime out. I mean, Mike Kafka, like you said, it would have to, like you said, it would have to be something extra extraordinary to even consider retaining him at this point. I just feel like you gotta wash this team completely of the stink of this whole entire of this staff. You just can't retain these guys. They to me, these guys are associated with absolute failure as a coaching unit, man, coaching staff. And I feel like you got to start fresh and get something new in here for real, big time. So I just and like I said, unless he does something so extraordinary that you just got to retain him, no way. I think no way. I think he's looking in another direction, man.
Let me ask you this: how many times have we seen a coach fired midseason, and all of a sudden the team do exceptionally well? Once or twice in the last few years. Look what happened to Antonio Pierce. He won, and they came back.
Exactly.
Nothing happened, right?
Exactly.
Like just because he might win again. Let's say he wins this game against Green Bay because Green Bay hasn't studied James Winston, even though you probably can go get some tape on him the Giants aren't definitely going to do RPOs with Winston the same way. Let's just say they win this game, right? You're going to Detroit. You talk about road games. The following week, you're going into Detroit. They're going on the road to Detroit. They're not. The Giants will have not won a game since last October. There's no way they're beating the Lions on the road in their building a day before Thanksgiving. So now what do you got? And to be honest with you, I don't know if I want to start Jackson Dart until after the bye week. Let him really recover. Because Brian Dable is not here anymore and doesn't need him for his job to be saved, right? Let him take a little respite. Kid, we know you're good. We know you got the goods. You got to play, 7 or 8 games this year. We know that you're the future, right? We're not going to put you out there as a lame duck against Detroit. We're not going to put you out there against the surging New England Patriots. Come back against a team that's a little easier to play in the Commanders, right? They're not outside the bye. They come back. They play the Commanders. They play the Vikings. They play the Raiders, and then they play the Cowboys, right? So, or you can shut them down the entire year. I don't know if they'll want to do that, but if you want to bring them in later on and say, hey, you know what, and the Giants are fully out of it, you want to bring them in for the last 2 games of the year, I don't think, you need to force it, especially with the meat of your schedule coming up right now with these games we talk about. I normally I don't say this to put a guy on the bench, but because you're in turmoil right now, right, I don't want to see them force this guy in there and rely on him. I want to see them kind of navigate away, play Jameis Winston, see some of these guys on the roster, and bring up the Turbo Mills of the world. What can it hurt? You didn't bring it up, and look what you did. You did QB powers. How many times did they run QB power in this game? A lot. Right? And they got Jackson Dart injured because when you do that, the ball gets carried away. Jackson Dart should not be running. We should not be running QB powers. He was winning from the pocket. You should have kept him in the pocket, and he should have been able to scramble when he needed to scramble. Jameis Winston doesn't bring that element. So you've lost that part of your playbook. So this is what I want to see, right? And again, I'm not really against Mike Kafka, but I don't care unless he gets you into the playoffs. Anything less than that, to me, is nothing, right? Unless you get to the playoffs, I don't want to see him next year. Sure, you win a few games. It'll be good on his resume. He took the fucking shitty Giants to a 5-12 record or whatever the case may be. Great. And then the next job he goes to, he can go be an assistant head coach like Patrick Graham somewhere, and then maybe he gets a head coaching job after that. But here, you're part of the problem, And the thing that I think is interesting is he's throwing it back in Dable's face by making the tight ends coach the offensive coordinator instead of Shea Tierney, which kind of shows. And he's saying, "Oh, we're going to be running the football more." Well, guess what? You're running. That doesn't that. Well, people like that. That doesn't bode well to what you guys do. This line run block. This line pass blocks very well. They run block horribly. Yeah, the run game.
Yes, they do. And speaking of run block, I'm sorry, I didn't mean, but it just made me think about someone who played the absolute worst game of the season on Sunday. Something I just need to point. I wanted to point out as well. I have no idea, but I hope Jermaine Luminor has pulled his head all the way out of his ass because it was all the way up there on Sunday. I have no idea what the hell he was doing on Sunday out there. It was, and I've been praising him all season. Been solid, being dependable out there at right tackle. What we got on Sunday from him was just a lick guy that didn't belong on the field. I don't know if he was still banged up and maybe he shouldn't have been out there playing. And if that's the case, once again, shame on his staff for not recognizing things like that. But he played. I don't know if you got to notice him on Sunday. It was horrible.
Oh no,
It
I
was
know. They talked about it on the
absolutely,
broadcast.
absolutely terrible.
You
And
know, it's interesting. I think that, the thing that got, I think, Dable fired is not necessarily the collapse, but the malpractice of how he handled the injury situation with the quarterback. You see him get a concussion, right? And then you put him out of the game, and then you go up on there and say, well, he didn't look right. And then somebody like that was not the answer you needed to see. That was a fumbly, and then, of course, the 4th and 3. So the thing is, as much as I want to believe in his staff, Kafka was a part of this team. He's an assistant head coach. I don't know how deep his voice was heard. I can't go that far. But you are on the offense, and you are working with Jackson Dart. You were supposedly calling the plays, which it looked like he was, right? Because you had Dable running up and down the field, right? So, and he's still going to be calling plays. Will that change? I don't know. I don't know what the philosophy is going to be. I'm excited, but also I kind of want the season to be over to see who the head coaching candidates are, because let's get into it. There are some guys out there that we like. I like a guy like Cliff Kingsbury. I think here are some of the reasons why I like him. I think he's got a decent offensive mind. I think he's young. He came back from college. He was a head coach in college, came back, ended up being a head coach in the NFL, then went back to college for a little bit to kind of be an offensive coordinator, and then has now come back into the NFL again. I think sometimes these guys, you need to give them a second chance to kind of, see if they've corrected their problems. And I think that he would be able to work with our quarterback well and adapt the offense. You're already a pretty ready-made man, right? According to one offensive coordinator, they said, "Would you love to come here?" Yeah, you have Malik Neighbors, Jackson Dart, Cam Scatterboo. You really do have, and then you have a top 10 draft pick. I'm not going to say top 5 yet, but at least a top 10 draft pick. You're going to have some decent money. Do I want Joe Shane making those decisions? That is something I'm going to have to waffle when we get down there, when these coaches do come in here. But I like Kingsbury on that regard. I do happen to like Brian Flores. Don't know what's going to happen with the lawsuit. There's a lot of legal proceedings that can happen. And another guy I really like that people are banting about right now, which I'm starting to look up on, is a guy coming in this week. I think his name's Hafley. He's a defensive coordinator for the Green Bay Packers. He has head coaching experience with Boston College. He's from the Shanahan tree, came back in with Greg Schiano. He's now learning under Matt LaFleur to be a head coach. So, I would like to take a look at that guy. Anybody with head coaching experience. If LaFleur gets cut, I'd love to see him. Stefanski. So there's the Giants are going to be in a great position to get a new coach. And absolutely fantastic. There are many candidates that are going to be out there that the Giants can get. And no, not Bill Belichick. Let's put that one to bed.
No, I'm pretty much off that. I'm definitely not down with the Bill Belichick thing. I don't know why we keep. I feel like just don't need to go down that road. I feel like I want somebody with experience, but I don't think I want. I don't want that. I don't want that circus. That if it all makes sense. And the Green Bay guy you talk about here, but I don't know. I would think they try to get somebody more offensively minded in here, just because of the quarterback situation, the young quarterback Dart. They want to probably get somebody a little more offensive savvy, like you were talking about Kingsbury. And I like Kingsbury's ability to work with the young quarterbacks. He's demonstrated that he's pretty good when it comes to all of that. But
you don't need to call me.
But I feel like. But I just feel like with Kingsbury, he still hasn't proven to me, at least at the NFL level, to be a winning head coach. You know what I mean? That can you really lead a team? And maybe, like you said, with all the, it's been a little bit of time now. He's had some more opportunities to hone his skills a little bit, and maybe. So that's be a road we could definitely consider going down. I know that people are, talking about Lane Kiffin a lot. Lane Kiffin's another guy that, once again, at this level, at the National Football League level, he really laid an egg. Put it quite frankly, man. And when he had an opportunity before, I mean, I know he's a young guy, and maybe he's matured over the years as well.
But he has
So,
experience.
and I mean, the fact that he's very familiar with Jackson Dart is obviously a good thing that would be in his favor. But it's just right now, it's going to be fun to look at these candidates and kind of figure out which way you want to go. I think the New York Giants definitely need to go with some serious experience, though. You need somebody proven resume, a proven winner. I think at this level,
So you don't
and
want so the Halfley guy is not on your radar then.
well, I don't know. I'm not as familiar with them. Not too familiar with them, but I just feel like I would lean more towards somebody a little more offensively minded that can, continuously, help the growth of your young quarterback. I think you need somebody that can come in here and hire a good staff, obviously, and get all the pieces around that you need. But I feel like as far as for your head coach, I think with a situation like the New York Giants are in right now with Jackson Dart, even with Cam Scatterbo, Malik Neighbors, other young talents on that offensive side of the football, I think you kind of want somebody a little more offensively, like I said, offensively savvy as your head coach, I would think.
Well,
But that's just my thinking.
I'm not. I need the head coaching experience. I don't necessarily need you to be head coach because that still to me doesn't mean you know how to command a room and talk to a lot of players and kind of address a team. I'm not saying every college coach is like that, but Halfley has coaching experience at a big time program at BC. And I know Marcus Freeman's name's been thrown out there from Notre Dame. I doubt he comes here. But, to me, what I'm really kind of looking for is a leader among men. And by the way, he was in the Army. He was I think he had some type of leadership in the Army Halfley. So he knows how to control a room, right? And I would love John Gruden, but I'll get to him in a minute. But I just believe we need a guy, and I think the Giants are going to do this. They might get a guy like McCarthy. They're going to get a guy in there that they feel that they don't want to go down that coordinator route. The only reason I don't think Halfley is going to make it is because he may not be a head coach in the NFL. But if they're looking for if you're just doing a broad head coaching experience, he has to be on the top of your list in that. Now, I heard a rumor that the Green Bay Packers want to keep him or might want to keep him and fire LaFleur. If that happens, I'd be running down and getting LaFleur, right? I'm also interested in Kevin Stefanski because I would bring him in and see what the deal is with the Browns. He's had a fantastic defense. All right, he could bring over Jim Schwartz. That defense is phenomenal over in Cleveland. You imagine Jim Schwartz here with this trio of guys and Kevin Stefanski working on the offense with an already made team. He might actually do something here instead of with that shitty ownership. Now, I also want a guy. Besides whoever you want, I want a guy that's going to be able to push back if they keep Joe Schoen against Joe Schoen. That's where I feel we really need, to be pushed that way, right? And be able to say, you know what, I need this. I need you to do this. Don't do that. Because the GM technically is the coach's boss. However, he does the shopping for the groceries, right? So I want a guy that's going to come in here and have an identity, meaning he knows what he wants. I think that's what Dable's problem was. We didn't know for a past team, whatnot, how he's going to employ that philosophy, and then how he's going to build that philosophy with the current staff that he's going to be probably, levied with, unless Joe Schoen gets fired, which there is a possibility for that happening. Will there be, will there be a pushback? Exactly like I said, against this guy. And notice the one thing I will say that I do believe is true, and I think the reason why I don't think Joe Schoen is safe is because the ownership is making the call this time to hire the coach. Last time they gave the GM the autonomy to
And he hired his boy.
Right. So
he hired his homie.
This time they're doing more of the final say and the hiring. So if, let's say, Stefanski or Tomlin want to come in here, I know Tomlin's not going to want to work with Joe Schoen. Tomlin might want to come in here and say, yo, Can you work with Joe Shane? Tomlin goes, absolutely not. So, listen, man, Gruden might be past his prime, but he'll build a damn good program.
No, I don't think he's past his prime. I think Gruden is still right. He's hung. He's hung. He's thirsty. He wants some more, man. He still see him in the offseason process talking to these quarterbacks. One thing we know about John Gruden is he loves Jackson Dart. I don't know, like you said, you watched the process last year during the draft process, during his Gruden quarterback camp thing he does. I know one thing. I watched the Jackson Dart one, and I know Gruden loved what he saw out of Jackson Dart. He loved what he got from Jackson Dart, and I know he believe in him, and he come in and be able to probably really work really well with that kid, man. And I think if Gruden is interested and we can find a way, I think that's why I'd love to get a piece of John Gruden in there, man. I think that guy still. I think he's hungry to after his exit from the league a few years ago, and I feel like he wants to take all of that, and really come back around and build his reputation back up. And I think that John Gruden, I would love it if we could get a guy like John Gruden. That's what I mean when I say a guy like that, a guy with a real pedigree that that I believe can really come in, and somebody that can come in and New York is a whole thing, man. Like you got to be able to handle the media. You got to be able, and a type of guy like a John Gruden type is somebody that can definitely come in and weather that storm as well. So you got to factor all of these things in. You're not going to have these little bullshit Brian Dable style press conferences, pressures after the games with a guy like John Gruden. He's going to own up to it. He's going to man up. And I think, like I said, I think he'll really work well with our young quarterback. And that John Gruden can run a football team. That
a lot of
hands down.
A lot of his ex-players like him. I don't know if he's out of tune. He's been studying. I don't know if this is his ploy to try to get to a coaching thing. John Gruden to me, makes sense on many levels, but I look at it like this. We need to stop worrying about building for Jackson Dart because we already know he's good. We need to get a guy in here who's going to build a team and get a team motivated, right? So, I don't know what they're going to do, but to me, I would look at it like there are the top of the list guys. I'd inquire about John Gruden, maybe not. I definitely want Flores. I'd like what Flores does. Obviously,
Well, that's the lawsuit thing with that, though. That just comes down to that lawsuit. Right now, with him having a lawsuit against the Giants currently, I think he's not going to be a top candidate unless that's resolved in some kind of way.
What I'm saying is there are avenues to which they could put this to bed. And then, it's a lot of legal backdoor talking. But if they found a way, he's a lawyer, so I'm sure he can get representation to, converse. And they find out, they could settle that probably pretty quickly and say, you know what, let bygones be bygones, right? And come in here and do that. Now, we won't know that. We won't know that until it happens. But I think he should be on the table. I believe you need to make this search. You need to go under every rock and every crevice and make sure the guy that you're hiring is not going to be some jackwagon that came in and impressed you. That's a special teams coach. Not going to be some goofball that your Hall of Fame coach hired and you got scared, so you fired the Hall of Fame coach to keep this guy. Not some guy who failed and had a lot of personality issues with the previous team, but you hired him because he was an adult in the room, right? And then not some guy who's going to be a blowhard to his people, right? The last 4 coaches they've gotten have all been, one, predominantly on the offensive side of the ball, but 2, have had minor flaws going into it, right? And the reason why I would like a guy like a Hafley more so than a guy like let's say a Dable, is because he controlled the program at Boston College. And he basically built that Boston College. He had to recruit. He had to get guys in here. He had to make the final decisions, the final say. Everything was to blame. Plus, he has some, officer experience in the military where he controlled platoons of hundreds of men, right? So those things about him lead me to say, okay, even though he's not had a head coach in the NFL, he's done something on a high level at a high program. If I'm going to go that route with a young guy and he's 42, 47, something like that, and get a guy in here whose defense is playing exceptionally well right now, That's a guy I would like. A guy I'm not trying to go for, even though I do like, is like if I'm going to go with another young guy, I'm pulling a guy like a Shula or a guy like Minter off of these teams. But the reason why I wouldn't want to pick those guys, they don't have the same credential as being a head coach at a college. So to me, I need that coaching experience. Now, there's a lot of guys that might be fired, a la Mike McDaniels. Maybe he gets fired. Maybe Robert Saleh comes in and he takes that guy's OC. There are many different things the Giants can do here with the coach, and a lot of coaches that you're going to see pairing with each other because they're going to have a better opportunity to grow, right? Especially because there's going to be a ton of coaches out there, and there's going to be a ton of teams that need coaches. It's just a matter of which one's going to be the right fit for you. And I just believe the Giants, if they get a guy like Hafley, they'll go with him because he had head coaching from Boston College. If they do something, I don't want Spagnuolo. I know that's been out there. I love Spags, love what he did, but I need a little bit younger. Youth matters, sometimes. I don't need McCarthy is 50-50 for me. I don't really care either way you get him. That's just to me that just to me is just a fail safe. Like, whatever, bro. Like, we'll get Mike McCarthy. He'll come in, he'll build your program, but his defenses have been terrible, right? The last few years. So who's he going to bring as a staff? Hafley can pluck from that LaFleur tree, that McVay tree. Like, there's a lot of things I want to see when they come in here on what they're going to do. But I'm excited for hopefully the candidate list. It shouldn't be the normal Joe Schmoes of the McCarthys, of the Spagnuolo. Like, I don't want those same normal guys. There are plenty of coaches out there. Fuck, Jim Schwartz is out there. Look what he does with that Cleveland Browns team.
That defense is cooking. That defense is straight. That defense is fierce over there in Cleveland. You ain't lying.
And I mean, his teams were competitive with the Lions, right? They weren't overly bad. They had a quarterback in Stafford, and they won.
They just couldn't quite get over the hump. You know what I mean? They were like decent, competitive. They just never could quite take that next step, which is why they pretty much showed him the door. I mean, it wasn't that he was a terrible head coach. I agree with you.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, nobody talks about that guy, and everyone talks about Spagnuolo. But what he's doing with the Browns defense in and out every week is something. That's why I would want Kevin Stefanski, because if Kevin Stefanski gets fired and you walk in here and you're like, you know what, Hafley's going to another team or whatever, and you want a guy with head coaching experience who I think got the raw deal, made that fucking Browns team competitive, then fucking bring in Kevin Stefanski and say, you know what, bring in fucking Jim Schwartz. And bringing that entire fucking, side of the ball. And I'm like, I got my offensive coordinator, Stefanski. I got a fucking defensive coordinator that'll know what to fucking do. So, let's do it. Let's do it.
Yeah, I'm with it, man. I definitely would support that. But let's talk about it on Sunday, man. New York Giants hosting Green Bay. Gonna be going into this one without Dart. Oh, real quick before we move right into this real quick, that when you brought up the point about maybe they should sit Dart for a few games until after the bye week. I 1,000% would be on board with that myself personally. I agree with you. I think it makes a valid sense. You know that this kid is your future franchise quarterback. You know this kid can play. You don't necessarily have to see anything more to know that this kid can play. At this point, it's about him getting better, being 100%. I just think it will be hard to. I mean, at this point, he's the only thing putting asses in the seats at MetLife Stadium, honestly. And I know this. I get it. It's a bigger picture than that for the long haul, but at this point, he is realistically the only thing putting asses in the seats at MetLife Stadium. And I don't think, when it comes down to it, I think John Mara would have a problem with him if he was healthy, just kind of sitting him down. And that's just my personal opinion. I agree with you said and the reason why it should happen, but I just think that's how it would end up playing out.
But you got to look at it like this. He's your meal ticket right now. Okay, you want to get a good coach in here, but what, you're going to risk Jackson Dart to play power fucking offense?
Like I said, you don't have to convince. I agree with you. I just think that's how it would play out internally. That's just my way of thinking how it would end up ultimately playing out.
Before we get into the game, if they do that, and they risk him getting injured again because they want to fucking sell some tickets for the last meaningless 4 games of the year or whatever, and he gets injured, I'm a coach. I'm like, well, I was excited until you fucking put Jackson Dart out there, right, and got him injured. Like, there's only a certain amount of shelf life that you can have for this kid. And I'm not going to risk him before the bye week. If you tell me, if you want to send him 3 weeks, let him get it cleared, take a couple weeks for the concussion to heal and get him back, then I'm all for it. And say, you know what, Jackson, this is not an indictment on you. This is more of an indictment on the position we put you in. We need to see other talent on the field, and we're going to bring you back, but we're not going to bring you back till later in the year to get a little game experience when it doesn't matter that much. We already know how good you are. But right now, sit down. And it doesn't look like his line is going to be out there. There's a ton of injuries on this team. Like, I don't want to risk him right now. Just sit him for the 3 games. And if you come back and you're like, you know what? We think he's healed. He's cleared. Let's play him against the fucking, against the Commanders coming out. Sure, fine. Play him against the Commanders. But Dable's not here. There's no rush to play this guy, get him through the protocol for a guy that was a loony that would run into the tent and say whatever. You got Jameis Winston, who is not going to win you many games, but it'll be a lot of fun to watch. And, just let Jameis reestablish himself and, establish his value. Maybe you'll get something for him next year if you want to trade, because there's going to be a lot of teams that are going to need quarterbacks. And he should not be you can always get another backup quarterback, right? But if the team wants him and they're going to give you assets for him, boom, let him showcase himself. But let's get on to the game. I don't know if you're finished with the coaches. I'm done with the coaches.
Yeah, I'm done with that. As I said, let's get to the game because we're already at the 120 mark here. So I mean, do I have to really ask? Sunday, Green Bay coming in to MetLife, take on the New York Giants, touchdown underdogs at home. Nobody does that like us either. We're always touchdown underdogs at home, no less. It's terrible, but that's what we are. The bad football teams. That's the level of respect you get. What do you think here? What's your thoughts? How do you feel about this game? Like the Giants have even any chance in this one?
Well, at first I was very excited because I'm like, oh, Jameis Winston, we're going to win. And now as I peel back the onion, I'm like, I want to pick the Giants because I'm excited. But at the same time, you're going through this turmoil, right? You're not going to not be asked questions about it. You still have Shane Bowen over here, and you're getting a guy who doesn't fit the offense to what you do, right? He's not a running quarterback. He's a stature back there. And while I like Jameis Winston, and I love the energy he brings and the deep balls he's going to throw down the field, he also has a propensity to give the ball up to a team that knows how to create turnovers, right, in the Green Bay defense. And while they didn't play their best game against arguably the best team in football, they're desperate right now for a win. And they're desperate to come in here to do what they can for this team. And I just don't know if this team is going to all of a sudden Brian Dable's gone and now the problems are going to just go by the wayside. I know that Kafka talked to Bowen, but let's be real. Do you believe in Shane Bowen? Because I don't. And regardless of what is out there, they still have a solid run game in Green Bay. And if they get some of their guys healthy, I don't think it's going to take much for them to beat us offensively. Defensively, I think it's going to be a shit show out there because we don't really have much personnel. We have a lot of guys that can go deep, and maybe it'll be fun, but I'm really 50-50 on this. I really want to believe that Jameis is going to be this guy, but then suddenly I look at the Green Bay Packers, and, I think they played down to their competition not down, but they played an horrible game offensively. And with Matt LaFleur's ass on the line, I think he's going to come out and, I wouldn't say shock the world, but I think they're going to cruise to a victory. I think it's going to be like a 28-21 kind of game in MetLife Stadium, And is that a bad thing? No, I think Kafka is going to be serviceable, but let's be honest, he's calling plays. He was calling plays this season. It wasn't like he didn't. The philosophy may change. We'll see. And I don't believe, I'm just thinking Jeff Saturday. I'm thinking Antonio Pierce, but Antonio Pierce was a motivator. This guy's not that. I don't know if him coming in is going to change anything. So it's hard for me to really pick the Giants. So unfortunately, I'm picking Green Bay.
Well, I'm absolutely picking Green Bay because, like I said, I can't even seriously pick the Giants at this point with
I
the
think
way they go out there and play. I mean, now the only thing they got going for them, I feel like, in this one is against Green Bay, is Green Bay has played down to competition this season as their losses on the year with Cleveland, Carolina are their two losses. Now I know Carolina's a halfway decent team this year, but I mean that loss at Cleveland earlier in the year, that was a bad look, and this football team just hasn't. I don't know. It's something about them. It's just I can't put my finger on it. But this Green Bay Packers team, but yet I'm still not gonna pick them to pick the Giants to win this game. I still can't do it. I feel like it just doesn't matter when it's the Giants out here. They're gonna find a way to fuck it up, man. They're gonna find a way to lose. That's what they do. They do it better than any other team in this league. They find ways to lose. How do you think this team goes from being the team that they were a season ago, where they couldn't score points at all, and the defense was keeping them in football games, and now it's just a complete opposite effect where now they score points, but now the defense stops absolutely nothing. And I don't this team, you just can't. We can't win for losing with this football team, and I can't. I got to go with Green Bay here
But
on Sunday, man.
one last thing I'll say, schematically, when I'm a defensive coordinator, I'm not worried about the run, so I can bring more guys in the box now because I know Jackson Dart. I know Jameis Winston's not Jackson Dart. He's not going to run around and scramble the same way. I don't think we'll see a 25. I mean, we might. You never to say never, but you're not going to see the long runs that you got from Dart, which is part of the package that you put in. I think you're going to see a lot more play action. They're going to try to establish the run game, which hasn't been existent at all. The Bears stifled that shit last week, and I think this team is definitely better than the Bears team defensively. And I think this is where the game could get out of hand, is where you're putting Jameis Winston back there, and he's just constantly throwing the rock. And again, he has a propensity to turn the ball over, and I just think that's what's going to end up happening.
I mean, I agree. I think what you're going to see is, to me, Jackson Dart always gives the Giants a chance. Obviously, without him, I don't think the Giants had that same chance. Jameis Winston is going to be that guy. Sure, you're going to get some big shots down the field. Hell, you might even see a Jalen Hyatt appearance because Winston's a quarterback, and Winston will just stay run long, and maybe Winston will actually hit him on something. Who knows? You don't know you just never know what to actually expect, man. And I just think you do know what you're getting on James Winston. So I just feel like, unless he's good for pulling a couple of them games out of his ass sometimes, where he looks like the number one overall pick that he once was. But they're few and far in between at this stage, man. And I can't just go on that. I just gotta, I'm sticking to my ground. It's going to stay the same. I don't think I'm changing that pick. It's going to be Green Bay for me all the way here. But the Washington Commanders, man, they competitions are getting a little easier this week for them. But Miami coming off a big win, man. Going up there to Washington again for like a third straight home game for them. Jesus Louises. Yeah, third straight home game for the Washington Commanders. But and they got a fourth one after the bye. Damn. But but Miami going up to Washington, man. I know Miami is not with Detroit or Seattle or Kansas City by any means, but at the end of the day, they got a big win against Buffalo on Sunday, and this Washington Commander team is absolutely real, man. What's your thoughts on it?
I think it's gonna be interesting. I think they're gonna win this game. Call me crazy. I think they're gonna, when you play a team that is a little bit more on your level in terms of like being able to have had the same turmoils and things like that, it gives you a little bit of a boost, right? You're like, oh shit, we're not playing the Detroit Lions or the Green Bay Packers. We're playing a struggling Miami Dolphins team, which I could be wrong. Maybe Miami has turned the corner and. This is going to be their victory, and they're going to propel themselves off that Buffalo win and, magically find their way back into the race, right? I don't think that's going to happen. I think, I do believe the Commanders need a win, and I think Mariota can do that against a team in Miami that's not very good. Let's be honest. They're not a great football team, and we will see the effect that Dan Quinn have, and we'll see what happens with Deron Payne. I think he's suspended a game or something like that. So we'll see what happens. But I'm gonna go. I don't know why I'm gonna go with the Commanders. I just have, I feel that they are due, and when you play a team that's coming to your building that is it's going to be a little colder. I think it's going to be pretty cold on Sunday. You know, that affects those teams, and it affects Tua a lot. So I wouldn't be surprised if Miami comes out and struggles a bit.
Opposite, man. I feel like the way this Washington team, they're just reeling and it's gone completely in the wrong direction. I think Miami goes up there and clips them as well. I don't think they're getting blown out this week. I will say that. I think they'll lose a more closer, more competitive football game against a team that's definitely more closer to their level. But I still think they're going to lose, man. I just watch something about this team, man. It's bad, and Washington defensively they're terrible, and Miami's got some big time weapons on that offense. I mean, Jalen Waddle, Damian Achane. If Tua is just okay, if Tua is just, he doesn't have to even be cooking. If he's just okay, man, that's going to be probably good enough to score points on this Washington defense, and that's probably going to put Miami over the top, in
Imagine
my opinion.
rattle some wins off and gets back into the wild card race. I mean, that would be insane.
Yeah, it would be.
But that's what a win like Buffalo can do. Even though it's a divisional game, and you've had Buffalo's number here and there, it's a big win against a team that has Super Bowl aspirations. You don't know what that could do. So I easily could see your point of view saying, hey, you know what? Miami's going to come out, but I've seen them be a Jekyll and Hyde team where you're oh man, look, Miami's playing Arizona or whatever, and you think they're going to win, and they end up flubbing it up and having one of those games, and you're like, damn, Miami, you just can't seem to get out of your own way. So we'll see what happens. They also lost Jalen Phillips this week. They don't have him anymore. So he was on the trade deadline, and I mean they've played with him a lot, regardless. But he is a part of their defense, and if we'll see if that impacts them in any way.
It definitely impacted the Eagles. I tell you that. He had a tremendous game on Monday night for the Philadelphia Eagles. That young man did. Yeah, but yeah. So yeah, I'm going. So you going with you going with Washington? I'm going with Miami. All righty. Let's go to Sunday Night Football. The Philadelphia Eagles. The Philadelphia Eagles are hosting the Detroit Lions Sunday Night Football, man. This is a big one. Two of the absolute best in the NFC, and I don't want to see a 10-7 football game, which somehow I don't think you're going to see when the Detroit Lions are involved. You're not going to see a 10-7 football game. I'm sorry. That's just not a thing with that team, and Eagles are going to have to score points in this one. So what's your thoughts, Adam?
I'm torn because I do believe strongly the Eagles are the best team of football, but this game could change that outcome of the NFC, right? I mean, besides Seattle, who's in their own entity, I think they could end up, when it's all said and done, Seattle could be the representative of the Super Bowl the way they're playing. But let's just put them aside for a second. Detroit has a lot riding on this game. The Eagles do not in the same vein. The Eagles know they're already in the playoffs no matter what because their division sucks. Not saying they're going to take their foot off the gas, but if they stumble down the stretch and happen to be, the 4th seed or something, they're going to get in regardless. So there's that. But I want to believe the Lions used last week's game and they're going to take that same motivation into this week's game, right? Because they do believe that they were supposed to be in the Super Bowl last year. They do believe that this is the team to beat. And with that being said, I'm going on a limb here. I'm going to say Detroit Lions are going to beat the Philadelphia Eagles because, like you said, the Eagles' offense does have sometimes they do sputter. And while I don't necessarily think it's going to sputter this game in the same way, I think the Lions defense is a lot better with Aiden Hutchinson in the game. And I think they're going to impact the game a little bit, be able to stop that run game that's been struggling and allow their pass rush to take over. And that could be the difference in the ball game. So that's what I'm going to go out on a limb here and say the Detroit Lions, especially with Green Bay winning, they're going to be winning probably on Sunday afternoon. Detroit's going to need this game to kind of get them off their heels.
I hear you. That's good stuff. But I'm going here with the Eagles. I think this is because this is a game that's going to force the Eagles to have to, you're going to have to elevate. You're not going to have any other choice in this game. You're going to have to score points against the Detroit Lions. And I think that by that, I think the talent is going to finally is going to come out. Jalen Hurts plays his best football usually when the pressure's on, when his back's against the wall a little bit. You kind of see the better version of Jalen Hurts, and I think these weapons are going to be unlocked finally this week. And I think you're going to see a whole lot of AJ Brown and a whole lot of Devontae Smith.
Where's the game?
This game's in Philly.
Oh, well.
And I think that I think this offense does become unlocked because it has no other choice but to. Like I said, they have to keep up with the Detroit Lions. 10 points is not going to get it done against the Detroit Lions football team. And an aggressive coach like Dan Campbell, the way he calls the games, how aggressively he calls the football games, you got to be able to put points on the board when you're playing the Detroit Lions. So I think for that reason, I think the Eagles do step up and rise to the occasion at home, and we'll see the best offensive performance of the season for them. I believe on Sunday against the Detroit Lions.
So this game, regardless of the score, right? If the Eagles win, where are you putting them in the NFC?
To me, they're at the top of the NFC until somebody knocks them down. Until somebody truly proves and knocks them down. And the only way you prove is to knock them down. So and right now, nobody's doing that right now still. So they're still the top of the NFC. What
if Detroit wins this game? What are your thoughts on them? Are they now taking over the mantle? Are you still vying for the Eagles? Are you considering Seattle at all? I know this is a little outside the box, but
I do. But at the end of the day, when it still comes down to semantics, like I said about all those Seattles and all those other teams we're talking about, it's all well and good, and they're all having successful seasons. The Eagles are already kind of locked in. We are, like you said, no matter what happens at this point, the rest of the season, for the most part, we know the Eagles are going to be in the postseason, and everybody else is still, fighting off whoever they got to fend off. The Eagles done fended off their whole weak-ass division already. That's it. It's done. They're in. They're locked in. At worst case, they're going to be the fourth seed in the NFC. At worst. That's the worst case scenario for the Philadelphia Eagles, is they'll be the fourth seed in the NFC. So that's if all hell breaks loose and the wheels completely fall off. So I just think this football team, at this point, they're already in a sense where they can already kind of begin to prepare themselves for January and what's to come in January, because they're going to be playing football deep into January. And like I said, representing the NFC East, because they're going to be the only team from this division in the postseason. And that's just what it is. Like I said, and they pretty much already have it locked down. So I just think it's tough to, even if Detroit was to win this game this week, this is the regular season, and yeah, sure, maybe you'll be technically, above and number one technically right now, and as the regular season goes, but it's still about knocking the Eagles off that throne, man. They are defending champs, and they're going to get an opportunity to defend those titles. I mean, they're going back to the postseason for sure. So it's kind of a tough way to look at it. But Seattle is, like, I agree, they're playing great football. That NFC West and that NFC North, somebody's getting the short end of the stick out of one of those two divisions, because one of those divisions is going to have 3 playoff teams, and one of those divisions is only going to have 2. And it's going to be tough. And it's going to be tough because it's going to most likely be a good team that's going to be on the outside looking in, unfortunately. So it's going to be fun to keep an eye on all of that going down the stretch now and the rest of the way. But we got one more game left, and that is the team we haven't talked about today because they had coming off a bye week. Dallas Cowboys Monday Night Football. Are they going out to Vegas? Yes, they are going out to Vegas for Monday Night Football, man, taking on them Raiders, man. Adam, how you feel to see the Cowboys coming off their bye week?
Every time I pick the Cowboys, they fail me. But I'm going to pick the Cowboys anyways because I think they have a chance to kind of take their time, reset, and we can see what adjustments they make. They just got Queen and Williams in the game. They got Logan Wilson. They're paired with Kenneth Murray. I expect to see a better showing. I expect to see the Cowboys flying around and coming out fresh and really kind of going to attack the last 8 games with a mentality of we're going to play for the best record. We may not make the playoffs, but at least we're going to, try to finish the season out strong and build on for next year. And I want to see what Keenan Williams does. I think him and Kenny Clark are going to be able to stifle the run together. Now, how are you going to double team when you have Keenan Williams in the middle? They've got a couple guys, Houston and that kid 41 from Boston College, who are starting to come into their own, and Dante Fowler as well in the pass rush. I think with Luke Wilson or Logan Wilson, I think they can have a solid linebacker to pair with Kenneth Murray that will be able to put it together. And I think they're getting Chevelle back. I think they're the third-round pick that they got, so they're going to get a little bit of cornerback help. So I think this game is made for the Cowboys to come out and really, I wouldn't say get back in the season because there's so many teams ahead of them that, but I do believe it's going to be a win and not even close, to be honest with
you. This is a tough one for me to call because the Cowboys, similar to the Commanders, defensively, they are such a liability. And I know the Raiders haven't exactly been a juggernaut offensively, but they got a couple of weapons over there, too, that can exploit some of the weaknesses on this Cowboys defense. Brock Bowers being the ultimate one of those weapons. I could see him going out there and really having a big night against this Cowboy defense. And I'm going with it. This Cowboys team gives me no confidence. When you watch their performance the last couple of games, they just give me zero confidence. I mean, I didn't realize the back-to-back Monday night games for the Dallas Cowboys, even though they had a bye week in between them. But back on the prime time, and I think they're going to have a similar result as we saw against Arizona a couple weeks ago. Man, this Cowboy team that just they can't stop anybody, man. And I just think a guy like Brock Bowers is going to feast on this defense. Geno Smith does have that, or have to have the arm talent to exploit this Cowboys secondary, which has been a glaring weakness for them all season long. And so I just think the Raiders get this small little upset, I guess you would call it. So I like the Raiders here.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah, we're not seeing these games eye to eye this week, Adam, at all. We're only agreed on the Giants and Green Bay.
Well, that's why we got to, that's why we keep the first show fresh, not always agreeing. People want to come here for real takes, so got to give them something.
Well, yeah, I just know it's just the Cowboys coming off the bye. They do need to rebound. I mean, their last two performances have been absolutely terrible, but I don't know. I don't know. I just feel like their defense is going to get exploited once again. It's so hard when you're that bad on that bad on one side of the football, which we should be all too familiar with.
I mean, the Quinn Williams may be able to help some of the nonsense that's going on. So.
Oh yeah. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting. Like I said, could be one of us is wrong, one of us is going to be right. But I just think that this Cowboy team don't give me nobody in the division gives me faith really, other than the Eagles, and I didn't even pick them to win this week. Ain't that crazy? But still, nobody else. I did pick the Eagles to win. I did absolutely. They're the only team in this division that gives me any kind of faith in it. The Giants, the Commanders, the Cowboys. They just not it. All three of these football teams are in the bottom of the league. All three of them.
Yeah, defensively at least.
Well, yeah, defensively, but I mean, even period. I mean, I'm not talking about statistically. I know the Cowboys' offense has some impressive numbers, but I mean, I'm just saying, just overall. I mean, look at their records. I mean, the Cowboys 3-5-1. The Commanders are what 3-7 or something like that, or 3-6 or something. I don't know, whatever they are. And then the Giants sitting at 2-8. I mean, it's just. Yeah, it's just been terrible in this NFC East division this season. But we're here sticking through it each and every Wednesday talking about these pretty sad football teams, man. They're all pretty bad right now, except for, like I said, except for the champs, the defending champs. The Eagles are still winning football games. It's not been the prettiest, but they're still winning football games, and that's all that counts. But you got any final thoughts before we get up out of here, Adam? Get ready to wrap things up?
Nah, man, I'm all good.
I want to thank you all for coming out once again to another edition of the Real Deal NFC East Roundup. I am Mac the Giants fan, and this is my guy, the super dope co-host, Adam Costas. And make sure you go to Adam's channel, hit that subscribe button, hit the like for the stream, man, and just share it out. Just help keep supporting our channels, man, helping them continue to grow. Go to my channel at Mac the Giants Fan, and please do the same thing. Hit the subscribe if you haven't already subscribed. Hit the like for the stream and share them out to all your friends, man. Let them know that me and Adam here every Wednesday talking about the NFC East, man. Kicking it 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time each and every Wednesday, man. Go to the Hardcore Sports Network as well and do the same thing. Hit that subscribe for the Hardcore Sports Network and that like on our stream over there as well. Hardcore Sports Network will give you everything you need from all your sports needs, man. Just tune in, tap into the Hardcore Sports Network from football to baseball to basketball, wrestling, hockey, you name it. The Hardcore Sports Network covers it, man. So go ahead and definitely tap in and have some and with the Hardcore Sports Network as well, man. But like I said, me and Adam will be back next Wednesday. Once again, it's 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for another edition of the Real Deal NFC East Roundup.
I'd like to thank you all for listening. If you was feeling this, please take time to subscribe and smack them likes. Feel free to drop a comment. Let me know what you think. Don't forget to ring that bell so you know when I'm dropping new content. It's your boy, Mac the Giants Fan. You can find me on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook at Mac the Giants Fan. That's MacDa Giants Fan.